So we actually met back in probably like 2017 because, as we've mentioned, we all wrote young adult before we wrote adult romance, and we're all in the Los Angeles area. So we were in what's called a debut group together, the 2018 YA debut group. And this group had a lot of meetups, and we, especially in LA, there were a lot of us that year. So we kind of had this little ecosystem there. And so we got to know each other through that, and we just realized that we hit it off and developed a friendship. And we've had a group chat going for years now where we just check in every day and chat about our lives or like what shows we just watched and books we read. And there's a lot of common things that we enjoy, and there's a lot of overlap there. And because I think we're writers, it sort of naturally develops into creating our own ideas or just riffing, like we're just building on top of each other. And so when this book came to be, it was a discussion of other things that we've enjoyed. And I know that I'm sure Emily and Austin will talk about this, but they love to play a game where they pair two properties together that have like kind of seemingly nothing to do with each other, and like what would that story look like. So what we've ultimately landed on is The Princess Bride meets People We Meet on Vacation. But in the group chat in its earliest form, I think the creation of this story looked like that, talking about what if we mashed two things together, and what would that be, and what kind of story could it be. And then as it snowballed and became more real, then we started meeting up much like this on video calls, and we break the story that way. But it was very organic, kind of all three of us together deciding. I don't feel like one person or one person in the group led that.
Everything was done all together. And so we decided that we were kind of like, we should write romantasy because there's three of us, three people writing a romance is not really, doesn't make a ton of sense unless it's like going to be a love triangle or you're going to just, so we were like, what's a story that three authors make sense for? And we love all genres. We really do. We're talking about stories, and all the three of us are always talking about our favorite things across genre. And so we wanted to branch out and do something different, but still have a little bit of a foot in our wheelhouse, which is romance. So it's like, it's a marriage of things that are new to us and also familiar to us. And so when we were discussing it, we said we really want to do three friends because we're three friends. So we wanted to justify those three authors behind a story.
And from there, it kind of sprang from the idea we had for the plot. Once we had kind of come up with this idea that we wanted to do a reinventive, retrospective, sort of deconstructive version of fantasy, the characters came from there because, for us, when we come up with them, we want our characters to be representatives of different sides of a common idea. And with This Will Be Fun, that idea was once you have saved the world and vanquished evil, what does that do to you? And what does that look like 10 years down the line? And so from there, we kind of came up with these three archetypes of the three different ways it can look. Somebody who gets super famous, somebody who tries to pretend they're a normal person and nothing happened, and somebody who is so traumatized by those events that they can't ever go back to the way they once were. And so that's kind of how we developed the trio.
Who wants to introduce different characters?
Yeah, I mean, we have Claire Grandhart is our ex bandit turned hero, and he was a very fun figure to write because he's become a very haddish, famous man who is dealing with that public persona, but also with how he privately feels a little bit inadequate for it. And then we also wrote
we have Beatrice Donatin, who is recently divorced and just really trying to she's in a little bit of denial. She's trying to pretend that everything is, that she can figure it out and that she can live a normal life. And she really is not living a normal life. She married someone she did not love to try to get over an ex, happened to be Claire, and she is just tortured with guilt over her part and what went wrong in their quest, and they lost their leader, and she feels very responsible for it. And so she is not able to get past this as much as she's pretending that she is able to.
Well, first, I want to say there is a third character, so I feel like we can't leave her out. I wrote Elowen True, so she is the third in the trio there, and she has become a hermit basically since the last quest because their leader was her brother. That's who died 10 years prior to the story. And she's moved up into the trees in the cursed forest, and she lives there in isolation, and she's convinced herself that that's what she wants, because if there's no one around her, then nothing can harm her, and she can't get hurt, or no one she loves can get hurt if she doesn't see it or isn't a part of it. And that kind of ties neatly to what I enjoy about it, because it is fantasy and there are fantastical elements. You can use these real things like grief and trauma, and there can be expressions of them that come out through their magic. So there is a magic system in this book, and it's split into, you either have hand magic, head magic, or heart magic. So hand magic will be like, it's pretty much what it sounds like, through your hands, gifts of trade kind of. Head magic is anything that has to do with thought or mind power control. And then heart magic, which is what Elwyn has, is centered around feelings and, you know, sort of a more internal magic. And her gift is that she can sense other people's feelings and emotions. And so she feels what they feel, basically. And I think that that is a really cool device, and it's a cool way to talk about feelings and to talk about empathy, and also to explain the ways, or see the ways, that grief changes people. And for a book that's called This Will Be Fun, there are a lot of fun elements in it, but there's also a lot of heavy stuff, and they are working through grief. So it was nice to have this place where there kind of isn't a limit, and you can put in fantastical creatures and you can have these powers, but you can also find ways to make all these fantastical things grounded. And I think that that's something that all three of us really enjoy doing and playing with, is like, how can we take something really ridiculous or really silly or really funny, and then really find something true at the core of it, and something that is human, whether it's a fantasy world or the contemporary world.
I mean, definitely, like, we got to play on all that humor, and it was fun. They have headaches, they have backaches, they
Old,
they
you
get
know?
out on the road like, man, questing sucks. Like, we gotta sleep under the stars. This is terrible. But you know, it's that was a lot of it, and also the interpersonal part was really fun, because for them on the whole, this is kind of like a work trip, and so they're being reunited with these people who they share this unique common experience with, but they aren't like besties. They haven't like kept in touch. It's kind of like these personalities who you get shoved together with, and you have to deal
They
with.
are besties after the quest.
Well, of course.
Yes.
That's the arc of the book.
Yes. Yeah, you know, it's like we really were thinking about things like The Princess Bride, and like you get a crew of people together on that quest, and then what happens? Do they all stay in touch, or what is different about their lives when the quest is over? Does the friendship remain, or like, was that your common interest, like saving the world? Like, do you have anything in common after that? And so those questions were really fun to play with, of like, the thing we have in common was kind of like traumatic and horrible, but also had these fun points, and we can't like recreate that all the time, but like, what if we can recreate it on this one kind of more lower stakes quest that might have surprising higher stakes? But it was a lot of fun to explore the dynamics between each of the three in the trio.